bonus feature here. Uh, as you all know, obviously, as you can see by the background, that Brother Uwais is in Dubai. A seismic change to his life. Uh, I just wanted to have a little chat, Uwais, to see how things have panned out. Obviously, when we do the podcast, you say everything's okay, but I wanted to probe a little deeper. Uh, and just sort of find out exactly how it's been, and maybe just in case somebody is contemplating a change of scenery, you can perhaps provide some sort of guide and advice. So it is a huge because obviously your family is still in the UK, so you're on your Jack Jones. So how's it been? I mean, the thing that I'm sort of intrigued by is first initially is how's it like where before you're seeing your family every single day, and now suddenly you're not seeing your family every single day. So how's that been?
Yeah, it's a good question, Ayub. Yeah, I mean, look, the thing with Dubai, and I will come on to answer your question shortly, but I think when many people are considering a move abroad, if they're fortunate enough to want to do something like this and then be presented with an opportunity to do it, I think it always feels, on the whole, on the face of it, because of the society that we live in, quite a glamorous and kind of think of all the positives, the fact that it's in warmer climates. There's various different differences, societal differences between where you and I have lived most of our lives in the UK, and then you're spending your time in a totally different culture, community, and various different advantages and disadvantages. But I think quite often the opportunity to work abroad, especially in the Middle East, has been seen favorably. I think for the most part, at least in the communities that I grew up in, when you think about Dubai or Qatar, Saudi Arabia, wherever it may be, within the UAE or whatever, it's been seen favorably in the sense of, oh, wow, amazing, the sun's always out and all the rest of it. I think what I would say though is there's a great deal of realism to the change. There's a lot of various different sacrifices that you have to make. I mean, firstly, you mentioned about the family. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a challenge, but I think what I try and do, you and this is speaking very frankly, is to keep a certain perspective. And what I mean by that is that whilst you're adapting to a new work environment, which is first and foremost the most important aspect right now, for me anyway, is that the perspective that I have is that I'm quite grateful actually that the family is comfortable in a routine that they're very used to at home, whether it be through school or even in mosque or whatever it may be. But there's a certain structure. Obviously, I've got two children, a boy who's nearly 15, daughter who's 9, but they're in a very comfortable environment in terms of school. My son's currently doing his GCSEs, or the year before his GCSEs, but he's doing exams that contribute to towards his GCSEs. But I'm happy that they're in an environment that they can just stick to a good routine. Because right now, whilst I'm working long hours, just simply because you have to get up to speed, I'm not sure how much use I would be to them in terms of actually being present
Mm,
mentally more than anything else. So I think what I would say from a family perspective, not seeing them, yes, for sure, you miss them, and you want to be able to get that warmth at the end of the day when you've had, let's say, a challenging day at work or whatever it may be, whilst you're trying to get up to speed. But I think, other than that, in terms of not having them here, I'm actually of the opinion, in a very and I don't mean this in an arrogant way in any way. I'm as family orientated as the rest of us, but I'm kind of glad in a sense that they're comfortable and they don't have to see me, in a sense, having working long hours to get up to speed,
mm.
whilst I kind of transition from a work perspective. I don't know. Does that resonate? I think you understand my point in that regard.
It does. I mean, it's just something that I mean, I obviously I travel to France, albeit for 3 or 4 days, and it's travel to for work with the knowledge that I'm obviously coming back. But after about 3 or 4 days, there is a yearning to go back. And I'm just thinking because obviously I stay in a hotel as well, albeit it's only 3 days, 4 days. But it I don't know. I mean, I look at the background. Obviously, it looks really exciting. But it's there is home is where the heart is, and that's always been perhaps even when I've gone on holiday. I mean, I've been to really nice places, but there is something, even if it's been a fantastic holiday, there is a feeling of landing back in the UK and sort of feeling right. This is home. This is really where I should be. In a sense, it sort of at my happiest, obviously, is when I'm home or when I'm in the UK. As I said, I can have a great time, and that's why I mean it's I don't think it's for everyone, and I think you have to have a certain mindset. you've obviously made this decision. I mean, has there been any sort of doubts, any moments where you've thought, have I done the right thing? Or have you always been quite focused in accepting that there will be difficulties, but this is the right choice that you've made?
Absolutely. It's more the latter, and I mean that. I mean, moments of doubt. I think it's not moments of doubt. It's moments of various different uncertainty, anxiety. But I genuinely think that's just the human nature of what we're about when we're outside our comfort zone. I think from a personal adjustment, it's been fairly straightforward. I don't really think too much about, oh, I wish I was home because I could experience this kind of this comfort. I mean, I've not driven a car for God knows how long, so that feels a bit
Mm.
unusual. But like various different kind of commonalities and comforts that you have at home, are you? Is not necessarily something I miss. It's not something I crave. So the personal adjustment in terms of missing home, I'd say, has been fairly routine. I hardly think about it, if anything, because you've actively made a choice. So there's nothing like, oh, I missed this and I missed that. I always think if you actively make a choice to do something, you accept and take on board all the various different kind of pros and cons that come with it. So there's been none of that. What I would say though is you're right in terms of there are huge challenges. It's not easy. Um, but I think it's more from a work perspective. You've got to try and get up to speed as quickly as possible, and then go from there. But no, I think from a personal adjustment, no, I think it's been absolutely fine. I mean, how would you find it? Do you think it's something you could do, or do you think actually this will be quite difficult for someone like yourself?
I must confess, it probably isn't something that I could do. I think I'm not to sort of say that you're not a sociable animal, but really, it I there is something, as I said. I mean, I like to see people uh, on a regular basis. There are times where I don't want to see them, but not to a point where it's weeks and weeks and weeks. And it just, I don't know. I mean, it sort of, I've always got this feeling of being, if I'm far away from family, there's a certain helplessness as well. And I always, maybe there's a, for all the optimism I may have of life, but there's also a pessimism, yeah, pessimism. And really, sometimes when I'm far, far away, there is always that thought that I'm very far away, uh, and it's not something where if I'm sort of, I don't know, 2 hours away, bang, in the car I can go. So it sort of feels very isolating if I was in that position. And I do sometimes, as I said, when I'm in France, once the work's finished. Now mine is different because obviously it's not. If it was a job that I just started, I'd probably be spending a lot more time making sure that I'm really familiar with the work. Where I finish in France, to a certain extent, and once I get to the hotel, that's me done. And it feels like quite a long evening because it's TV. I mean, I love my television. Now, obviously, I can go on YouTube, uh, and I can go on my phone. But really, in terms of, I do like to watch television. If I'm in a foreign country, it's television that really it's not familiar to me, and it's I'm quite a simple guy in one sense, and living in a foreign country takes away a lot of the simplicity. As I said, I'm more than happy spending an evening watching Fools and Horses on UK Gold. Quite a simple thing. But if I was in a foreign country, I couldn't do that. Now, obviously, I've got, as I said, I've got the phone, but it's just having family or being close by to family, seeing friends, and just being in an environment where I'm comfortable. It's. I mean, if I was in Dubai, it's a wonderful place, but it's a place that I'm not used to. Eventually, I could get used to it, but again, I don't think I'd ever get used to it because uh, England is my home, and I will always view England as my home. And I view the northwest of England as the place that I'm very familiar with. I lived in London, but northwest is where I was born and brought up, and that perhaps is the reason why I couldn't do what you're doing. I think it's admirable. I think it's extremely brave, uh, and it's what I'm just trying to sort of work out what mindset you need for it to be successful. Because certainly for me, I don't think I have the mindset.
Yeah, and I think a good points there. There's something you said earlier that made me want to interject. You mentioned about when you go to France, there is a yearning to come home. When we're all programmed, when we go on holiday, we know there's a start date, there's an end date. So there's a certain clock that ticks in your mind, which kind of then tricks your mind. Say you're a day away from returning home or a couple of days away. There's a certain
mm,
finite element to it. There's a certain end point. So your mind starts to drift towards uh, going home. Quite often, actually, you'll be in an amazing place when you're going on holiday. And then 2 days before coming back, your mind will switch to the point where I'd rather just get to the airport and go home.
mm.
Weirdly, it's a very
Yeah,
perverse
yeah,
feeling quite often. I think the difference here is that because you've made, or I've made this shift um, across, there is no kind of end game, so to speak. So your
mm,
mind doesn't drift to,
mm,
okay, you know what, actually, I just rather go home. All there is plowing through and working through the challenges. And you mentioned to your point that you you're somebody, and I think the phrase that came to mind, at least when you were speaking there about friends and family, is that it I think it nourishes your soul. So I
mm,
think seeing friends, seeing family, spending time with them, you and I used to spend a fair bit of time together.
mm,
It nourishes your soul because you're talking football, family, various different elements, work, whatever it might be, but
mm,
something that you enjoy in terms of the spirit of companionship, and you talk and you have a laugh, and as various things. For me, obviously, in a sense, you miss all that because you leave all your friends behind. And as
mm,
much as you might have social media, WhatsApp, and all the rest of it, it's still not the same as spending
mm.
physical
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
company
yeah.
with a friend and what have you. I think here, I think the one thing I would say for somebody who might be thinking about it is, I think more so, I think when you're single and you're young, and you've not got many responsibilities or commitments, absolutely, you come here, you work. Hopefully, you find yourself in the right workspace, work environment, and a culture, and then you take advantage of everything that Dubai has to offer in terms of various different amenities, facilities, incredible scenery, wonderful kind of walkways and what have you. I'm based very, very close to the marina, so I go for my morning walks, especially on the weekends, and it's lovely. I sit on the bench, I just take in the scenery, and I'm kind of gathering my thoughts. It's something that I like to do on the weekend. But for sure, when you're somebody who's married and got family and got young children, it's something that's not easy. I definitely would not. I'd be very surprised if somebody could make this shift across and be like, yeah, no, I'll handle it. It's fine. But what you do is you compartmentalize and understand that actually, if you can make the work a success, and if you're fortunate enough through the grace of all the Almighty to kind of make it work, you're then thinking, look, it's an adventure, and it's an experience, and it might be an experience for your loved ones that they'll look back on over time, whatever may come in the future, and think, you know what, I'm glad we had that experience, because I always feel as though the world is there to be traveled if you have the
Mm,
opportunity, whether it's holidays, excursions, sabbaticals, whatever it may be. I think there's something incredibly useful to seeing, in a sense, quote unquote, how the other half lives. And there's just something about it that opens your mind to possibilities, broadens your horizons in a sense of not necessarily in terms of what you could achieve. It's more just to see another way of life, another way of working. I mean, sometimes I walk to work and it's a very short walk from the hotel. I live literally opposite the office, and I think about it. I think, wow, just all of a sudden I want you to try this, and now I'm trying it. And although there's some challenging days with work, there's absolutely no getting away from it because it's an incredibly fast-paced company, and you're having to get up to speed, and it's a culture and all the rest of it. Different colleagues, different work around, different speeds, different pace, different sector. All there is a commitment simply to plow through and hope that you're blessed that things get kind of more comfortable and easier over time. I think if you stay true to the grind, you can make it work. What I would say though is it's definitely not a case of what many people might think, oh, it's Dubai, it's incredible. Yes, there are times when you take it all in, absolutely, and you have to appreciate the surroundings. What I would say though, it's damn hard work as well for the most part. So it's there's no getting away from that. Work's work at the end of the day, and it's a lot of long hours. I get into the office around 8 on average. I'm leaving the office on average around half 7. So it's long hours. It's tiring. Your mind's absolutely fried at the end of it, and even then you come home. And spend an hour or two with work. So look, it's a grind, but I think it's one for sure to be experienced as well. So yeah, it's incredible in some ways.
I mean, how's the adjustment been in terms of, do you know the people that you work with? Because you obviously your background is just working in the UK, so I presume. I mean, I'm not sure what the backgrounds of the people that you work with are, whether there's any people from England or whether it's across various continents. But what's that like? Because I mean, it must be different because you've obviously worked, we were working together, and obviously it was quite unique. experience working obviously in the organisation we work for. So what's the adjustment been like? I mean, you're obviously quite a smart character, so I think you can obviously adapt. But what's the first impressions of the characters that you work with? I'm
Yeah, I
absolutely
think.
convinced they're not watching this, so you can say what you want.
I'll be careful just in case. No, look, I think that is probably one of the big advantages of making a shift like this. Many people ask, "How are your work colleagues? How are your work colleagues?" I think, look, people are people, regardless of what race, or community, or culture they come from. This idea that a certain culture or class of people might be a certain type of work, a certain nationality, is absolutely not. I think you ultimately, at its core, you've got some very decent human beings. I mean, I've got a couple of colleagues from Jordan. I've got a colleague, she's English. I've got another colleague who hails from Al Ain, who lives in Abu Dhabi. You've got various different colleagues. One colleague hails from India. I mean, that's just a core team, and there's many other kind of Indians, Pakistanis in the team. Arabs as well, English, many an English folk, chief strategy officers, English as well. Spend a bit of time with him. So look, ultimately, there's a lot of various different mix, and I think that's what makes the business great. But ultimately, I always think, and I think we've discussed this many a time, Ayub, that if you try and be decent to people and be kind to people, you often find that that's reciprocated in kind. And even if it's not reciprocated in kind, there's no reason to lower your own standards in terms of how you are towards other people. So no, the team's been incredibly supportive. We sometimes have coffees together and kind of go for walks and all the rest of it, just to simply get to know one another. And that's been an incredible experience. And that's part of what I speak about when I say, if you get the chance to be a little bit outside your comfort zone, you meet new people, you spend time with them, you get to learn their backgrounds, what are they about. I found that I'm actually one of the oldest in the team, which doesn't make me feel great. But yeah, this is what I mean. It's this whole adaptation, and you try and do your best. I think what most people in any walk of life and work and communities and different work settings see, that if you're somebody who's trying, and somebody who's willing to give it your best shot, so to speak, then you'll find that most people will gravitate to you in some way, shape, or form. So, no, it's a really cool team, fun team, a lot of pressure, but also a lot of well-meaning people, which I fully appreciate as well. But yeah, I mean, we've got an incredible setting in the office. I sent some pictures to the missus earlier this afternoon, saying, "Look, this is the setting. You can see the sea, you can see the beach of the Palm, you can see the Bulge Arab just in the distance as well. So it's an incredible setting. Problem is, you're working so hard, you never get to
Yeah.
kind of stand up, stand next to the window, and take it all in. So no, it's incredible. But honestly, after a while, you just get so used to it. But no, it's cool. I mean, you've been there, you've stayed there for quite some time in a very lavish hotel, if I remember correctly. Yeah, no expense spared and what have you.
Hmm.
But no, it's an incredible setting, isn't it, Ayub? I mean, you've been to Dubai how many times now?
I've lost count actually. I've
Wow,
lost count. I've got a number of times, but
it's a
it
bloody
is. It's
it's a bloody
yeah.
expensive place, Ayub.
It is. I mean, it's an exciting place, but I've always been as a holiday maker, so therefore I suppose it's a different mindset. I mean, what I'm looking at behind you is obviously it's what I think of Dubai. I mean, it's glitzy. I mean, albeit obviously it's just a background with people sort of waiting to be picked up by the cab, but it just looks glitzy, and that's another thing I want to speak to you. I mean, you're still in the hotel. How many weeks has it been now since you've been there?
4.5.
4.5 weeks. I mean, that's a long time. I mean, it's almost like footballers when they sign for a club before they find their own accommodation, and they quite often talk about that it becomes quite a grind just to live in a hotel because, in a sense, until you have your own place, it almost sort of feels that you're. I mean, I'm not going to say you feel like a holidaymaker, but it doesn't seem like a permanency. So, what's the situation on that? I mean, are you close to getting your own place?
Uh, Not really, no. I mean, many people. This is a really interesting thing. What I mean about perspective. So a lot of people find, because we gravitate to wanting to create a comfort, creating stability, right? We crave stability. A hotel feels you're somewhat in transit, aren't you? You're
Mm,
in between. Hotels aren't there to stay permanently. You're there just
yeah.
to accommodate your temporary needs. I just find myself very, I wouldn't say resolute, I don't think that's the right word, but of sound mind to the point where what's the most important aspect, which is to be close to work, knowing that I'm going to be working long hours. So it makes sense for me to be based somewhere where I'm spending the least amount of time getting to and from work for the time being, because I've got less time to work with whilst I'm still
Mm.
trying to pick up the piece. I don't feel in any way uncomfortable at the hotel. It's, if anything, it's in a good setting. Like I said, it's a stone throw away from the marina, which is a lovely place, as you know. You just to kind of walk around and sit
Yeah.
on a park bench and all the rest of it, and go for a coffee on your own, on your Jack Jones, as you said.
Mhm.
But it's just there is something. Once you accept that the most important aspect is the work, everything else just becomes secondary. I mean, the
Mm.
rest, I mean, you go to surgery all the time. I mean, you have a tough day at the office. You want to get
Mm.
back to the hotel, relax, and it's just you on your bed and TV or whatever it might be, or YouTube, and I know what you like. So
Mm.
I'm the same in some ways. I mean, if I'm not at work, I just want to get home and get to bed after a while. So for me, I mean, what I would say about this hotel though is that, and I think we've discussed it off air. It's the official Arsenal UAE hotel in Dubai, so it's kind of partnered with actual Arsenal Football Club. All the Arsenal games are shown live in an incredibly lovely bar, open roof, which is amazing because it's Dubai. So having watched the Porto game at 12 midnight over here, it was a
Mm.
perfect environment. I mean, there were a few people let's just say,
A
sipping,
little bit
sipping
worse for wear.
a little bit worse for wear. I tried to keep myself away from them as much as possible. There were a few people in the 92nd minute as Arsenal were not trying to forge any attacks, swearing, and I was thinking, this is a bit rich. You can tell, you can guess what they thought when the bloody ball went in at the other end. But no, look, it's an incredible bar, and I'll be watching the game. I'll be watching the game tomorrow as well against Newcastle. But yeah, it's just it's once you accept that work is the most important thing. Honestly, the hotel just becomes quite secondary. You need a bed. That's how I see it, and that's how I take it like that. Yep.
Right. So are you able now to enjoy the weekends? Because I know at the start work was all consuming, and I presume it still is, but are you now able to look forward to the weekend and just take it easy, enjoy some of the downtime? Obviously, you've got the Arsenal game that you're going to be enjoying, but is it now that you can look forward to the weekend and enjoy?
I still probably wouldn't say I'm at that stage, to be honest. It's just the work's a lot. I mean, I do spend a lot of time on the weekend working, and look, I'm not complaining. That's just the way it is when you start a new job in a different way, right? You don't know what the culture is going to be like. It's a lot of work, and if you don't use that time working, then you'll feel worse for wear going in on Monday. So, it's an investment that you make into yourself to learn, to get up to speed, to learn as much as you can, because it's critical, isn't it, Ayub, for your long term prospects of success. Will I enjoy this weekend? Perhaps a little bit. Again, it's the same routine. Wake up in the morning, go to the marina, go for a walk, grab a nice coffee, and then get settled in for some work. Literally in the same spot that I am now. So I try and keep myself in the hotel reception whilst working. But no, I mean, look, it's still a challenge, but I wouldn't say it's one that you shy away from, because again, these are the choices that we all make. So there's no excuses. You just keep on grinding. Uh, you feel a little better for sure that you're not inundated with work. But yeah, it's something I would encourage anyone who's willing to try something to go abroad, wherever that might be, because you learn a lot about yourself as well. So life is to be lived and experienced, and learn a little bit more about yourself. But we often find ourselves trying to stay within our comfort zones. But no, let's see how tomorrow goes. I mean, it all depends how Arsenal do at the end. Let's be honest. That'll probably top it off a bit like yourself this evening. So let's see. If Arsenal win, the weekend will be a good one.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for giving an insight into your your journey to Dubai, and obviously, I suppose, your new life, which is what it is. So, uh, really interesting, and I hope somebody, I mean, for whoever's watching, I hope there's some useful tidbits of information there as to if you are contemplating changing. Uh, what is the key, though? Just before you go, what is the key? What is the one thing that anybody contemplating relocating? Uh, what is the one thing that they have to factor in? What's the toughest thing that you've experienced so far?
um, I mean, I'm not going to give you the obvious ones because we've discussed them in terms of family. What I would say is that you've got to be very sure of yourself in terms of the decision that you're making that knowing that you don't want to be too emotional in the highs and lows. There are a lot of challenges, whether it's work, whether it's, I mean, are you, it's like the weekends. Who wants to spend their weekends if you can, working, right? So ideally, you and I, we both spoke about it, what weekends were like. We relax, we chill. I mean, for me, it was a lot of gym, a lot of home life, a lot of watching football, spending time going to the local joint for a cup of tea with your friends, talking football. It's what makes it great. To give up all that and knowing that you don't have that much of a release, let's say, especially in terms of companionship, friendship, whatever it may be, I just say to anyone that you've got to be really kind of confident and assured of yourself, that knowing that you're not going to emotionally react to the good times in a really incredibly positive way. And similarly, don't react too harshly in terms of some of the negative side, right? There's a lot of things to address in terms of administration. I've just recently obtained my Emirates ID, which is critical if you want to be living in this part of town. And that's a process. You've got to go for a medical, you've got to go for fingerprints, and what have you. There's various different parts of the process. I always still think if you make the most important thing, which is, at least for me, getting up to speed with the work, you don't sweat the other stuff because
Mm.
it's not so important. In terms of a list of priorities, you move for work. A lot of people still text me, friends and family, say, "Oh, how's Dubai? You settle? What's it like? Must be amazing." And quite often, I'm too tired to respond. So that's probably already told them, in a sense, how it's like. It's definitely not the glitz and the glamour. It's a lot of work, and
Mm.
maybe perhaps once you bypass that, you
Mm.
can start to enjoy the fruits of your labor and enjoy a little bit of what Dubai has to offer. Again, just to answer your question specifically, I'd still say not to be too emotional to the good times, but equally not to be too hard on yourself during the bad times. I mean, it's a process. You just got to keep plowing through. Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't worry too much about putting down roots. I've not done this or I've not done that and all the rest of it. It's the work. If you can make the work stick, and that becomes a more of a long-term proposition, everything else then will fall in place. And one final point I would say is just on a financial point is, Dubai is an incredibly expensive place, isn't it, Ayub? I mean, you may have stayed for 9 days at what was it, which Jumeirah Palm Beach Hotel, whatever it was
Jumeirah
called.
Beach Hotel, yeah,
Jumeirah
yeah.
Beach
So
Hotel,
yeah.
which is right on the Palm. I don't know, it's about £6,000 a night or whatever it might be. But no, look,
I'm
it's
not sure what it was. I don't think it was that much.
not sure what it was. It was on the missus, wasn't it? I mean, look, it's an incredibly expensive place. You know that. But I think if you see this as a long term gig, if and you're fortunate enough, and that's again not in your hands entirely, of course, I wouldn't sweat paying a little bit extra early doors if you have the means. If you have the
Mm.
means, because ultimately you're going to make it back in the long run if you settle here. So I think that's another thing I've been quite thinking on, that look, if I have to spend a little bit paying for a hotel to be close to work, an expensive hotel close to work, so be it. So again, keep the main thing the main thing. Don't worry too much about everything else. It will fall in place if the work's secure, and you're happy within yourself. The rest is just going to naturally fall in place over time. So that's what I would say. It's not all glitz and glamour, although this flashy window with the lights and all the rest of it makes it seem
It's
like in
it's
the
certainly
background.
glitz and glamour behind you, or at least where they're going to.
Oh,
So
for sure,
for
for
me,
sure, for sure.
I always want. I mean, for me, Dubai is always a holiday destination. So perhaps for me, I'd always want it to be a holiday destination. But a really good insight, honestly, always it's a really good insight. As I said, and I told you at the time when you did it, it was an incredibly brave. But right, correct decision. I think in life it's about exploration, isn't it? Really, we have one opportunity on this earth. For those who obviously believe there is an afterlife, but certainly on this earth there's one opportunity, and you want to try and garner as much experience as you can do. And I really admire you. I think it's brave, but I think it's the right thing that you've done. And I think you've talked absolutely critically that if you can get the work element absolutely bang on, then the rest takes care of itself. And I think that's the thing, you see, because I think anybody going, if they're more interested in the in the social aspect of it, maybe that's the wrong thing to do, because I think you got to get the work absolutely right. So all the hours that you're spending, even at the weekends, in the I think will bear fruit, and hopefully you'll be able to enjoy Dubai. And when you are enjoying Dubai, that's probably when I'll come over.
Oh, good stuff. That's good because I need. That's good because I need some things bringing from home as well. So let me know when you're coming,
I,
please.
brother, I can't. I travel light.
Yeah, I'll probably give you like 23 kilograms to bring, as is commonplace within the Indian community, if I
It
can
certainly
say.
is. Not with me though. I, I only carry hand luggage. That's it. All right, absolute pleasure to speak to you. It's something different, audience. It's obviously it's an opportunity to discuss with Uwais about what he's doing in Dubai at this moment in time. So this was a little bit of a special. So hopefully we'll catch up with you very, very soon. All right. So until then, see you later.